Adventure Time has some of the coolest and iconic characters to ever exist in a Cartoon Network show. I would even go as far as to say in all of fiction. Some characters have long arcs throughout the show, like Marceline, who at first was stated to be this evil vampire queen that thrives on rage baiting. Yeah, just rage baiting, but she is found to be one of the most heroic characters in the show, arguably even more than the main character himself. One day, you find out that one of the main villains in the show is actually the most tragic, and in another, you get scenes like,
"You thought he was about to get me?"
But what Adventure Time doesn't tell you is how some of the side characters, even if they only appeared briefly, have very subtle arcs and backstories that are left completely ambiguous. There is one character that rarely gets spoken about, a character that first appears halfway through the show's life cycle, a character that instantly became a fan favorite, a character that is all-powerful, yet ultimately lonely under the cover of happiness. This is the story of Prismo, the Mirage of Desire. If you're new around here, please leave a like and subscribe. According to my analytics, 90% of you who watch my videos are not subscribed. My goal is to reach 200,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Once I get there, I plan to release a big character analysis on one of the two most compelling Adventure Time characters I haven't covered yet. It would mean a lot and just motivates me to improve my content for you. With that out of the way, let's get to the video. During the events of the season 4 finale, where the Lich, disguised as Billy, gets Finn and Jake to collect magical gems from the various princesses in Ooh, we are shown a virtual presentation of a guy called Bucko explaining the multiverse.
At the center of the multiverse is a dimension called the Time Room, believed to be the quasi-corporeal dwelling place of the almighty Prismo. The Time Room is a single dimension that exists outside of time.
This is the first time Prismo is name dropped, but not officially shown. That is, until the next episode, Finn the Human. After the Lich opens a portal to the Time Room, Finn and Jake follow him in. When they catch up, they briefly witness him laughing maniacally before disappearing. This is where we see Prismo for the first time, who says,
"You know that was a ghost wearing a dead guy. That might be the nastiest thing I've ever seen. Nasty.
Hey, easy, buddy.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean nothing by it. I'm basically honorary nasty."
That introduction was enough to make me fall in love with the character. Voiced by Kumail Nanjiani, he carries a tone that's both comedic and genuine, juxtaposing with the intensity of the situation. He explains that the Lich wished for the extinction of all life. Finn is shocked, while Jake wonders why nothing has happened to them. Prismo clarifies that his time room exists outside of time, which is why they remain unaffected. That is until they make their own wishes. So the two start brainstorming until Finn comes up with the ever so ingenious plan of wishing that the Lich never existed. This results in him being transported to a new wish reality called the Farm World Dimension, where magic doesn't really exist. Ironically, a bunch of chaos goes down, resulting in the Lich existing anyway. But in the next episode, we see Jake still in Prismo's time room, wondering where Finn is. Prismo explains that he's in his own wish-created reality, and that the two can watch him on his interdimensional TV. Jake comments on how everything looks so chaotic, but Prismo tells him that he can get a wish too. And what does the fat ass do?
I wish for a sandwich.
Prismo is confused at his request and tells him that he can just make him a sandwich. This small detail ties into a theory I have, which I'll bring up later. He then states,
"You should use your wish on something important. On someone who might need it?" I'm talking about him over there.
Later, Jake eats Prismo's sandwich and says he'll hold on to his wish until it is needed. Then we get this funny scene.
Oh, don't worry, dude. I got you covered. They're homemade.
I love you, Prismo.
And thus begins the bromance of Prismo and Jake, arguably the best relationship in the entire show. Later, while Finn is going through it in his horrendous wish reality, Jake and Prismo begin chilling in a hot tub. Prismo says,
"Dude, I get out of relationships because I don't want to have a discussion about what we're gonna have for dinner every night."
Jake then asks him if he gets lonely, and he responds that he has friends. And who shows up not a second later? The Cosmic Owl. The cute guy is disappointed to find a mortal already there. He just wanted to play board games with Prismo. He then tells him that they'll hang out later and to just get in the tub. It's these quick moments that highlight Prismo's wholesome nature. After they start fucking around more by freestyling and beatboxing, Cosmic Owl accidentally unmutes the TV, and we hear Finn wailing in distress at his version of Jake, who is about to turn into the Lich. Our Jake gets worried and starts calling out to him, but obviously he can't hear him. After it abruptly turns off, Jake starts panic wishing, but Prismo stops him, saying,
"Wait, dude, look, I like you. So you should know my wishes always got an ironic twist to them. You just gotta be really specific. You see, Jake, there's rules to this stuff. Memories will be destroyed, babies will not be born, potential worlds could be evaporated by your wish."
Jake then pukes out of anxiety because of the intense pressure. Prismo then not so subtly mouths what Jake needs to do, which is to change the Lich's original wish. Learning this, Jake says,
Okay, I wish the Lich's wish was for me and Finn to go back home to Ooh.
That little from Prismo adds so much to his character, since as an almighty wishmaster, he has to follow certain rules and stay impartial. Yet he still chose to help Jake make the right wish.
I can work with that, all right? This has been nice. See ya.
And we then witness that scene back in the previous episode, with Finn and Jake following the Lich into the time room. This time, however, the Lich's wish has been changed.
For Finn and Jake to go back home to Ooh.
Huh? No.
Sorry, guy. You only get one wish. Hey, Jake, did you see that? Monkey spot.
And the pair is transported back home. Finn is confused, obviously, but Jake retains all the memories of what had happened, even though they technically never happened. Also, the fact that Prismo recognizes Jake, even though he technically shouldn't, means that he does exist beyond time, that there really only is one of him. I don't think the writers intended for fans to think too much about this interaction, but this does get confusing when we get to a future episode. The episode ends with Prismo sending Jake a jar of pickles and an invitation to hang out whenever, and he responds,
I gotta get that guy a girlfriend.
Through those small interactions with Jake, Prismo grew to genuinely care for him. Not only does it make him a standout character, but it also ties into a theory I have, which, as I said earlier, I'll get to later. The next time Prismo appears is in the season 6 premiere, Wake Up. We see that he's thrown a party with all these different deities present. We've got Death, Glob, and even Peppermint Butler for some reason. Yeah, he's got lore. Jake here finishes off the last cheese crackers, and then we get this hilarious interaction.
You ran out of cheese crackers.
What? No.
Yeah, man. What are you gonna do about it?
And the wholesomeness of their bromance gets even better.
Prismo, you make me happy, Prismo.
Oh, stop.
Then Peppermint Butler and Death approach them, asking if it's safe to have the Lich in the time room. Prismo explains that the Lich's primary function is to cause death on a massive scale. Since he can't do that in the time room, he's just frozen. Slight foreshadowing here. Anyways, Jake rushes home because he realizes the time and doesn't want to worry Finn by staying out too late. Finn then tells him that his human father is still alive, something the spirit of Billy told him in the season 5 finale. So the two decide to go to Prismo and ask him how to get to the aforementioned citadel. They get there by pressing the P on that note he gave him in the last season. In the time room, we see Cosmic Owl asking Prismo for one more game, while he's just exhausted from the party. But wait a minute. What game are they playing? Yeah, that's right, it's Card Wars. Keep this detail in mind for later. Anyways, Finn and Jake show up and ask Prismo to get to the Citadel, but he tells them that it's not a place you want to go to. It's a cosmic prison for the worst of the entire cosmos. Still, Jake decides to use Shelby, the worm that lives in his viola, to wish for them to be transported there. Instead, he wishes for a pony for his girlfriend. What a cheeky bastard. Prismo then explains that even if he did wish for the two to go to the Citadel, it wouldn't have worked. To get there, they need to commit a cosmic crime. And he says,
all you gotta do is find a certain sleeping old man and bring him here. He's on one of those floating islands out there.
The two are confused by how that's a crime, but he starts being cryptic, saying that there's nothing more to it.
For now.
And then he gives them these pen lights, and Jake does this.
Jake, don't look directly in the...
He then says,
whatever you do, don't wake him up.
What does Jake do hearing this information?
Hey, get out here, old man!
As they pick him up, they find that he's got these night terrors, slightly foreshadowing what his true identity is. They then use the pen lights to completely obliterate them. When they arrive, Prismo, despite all the effort the pair put into keeping the old man asleep, simply says,
okay, wake him up.
The truth is that this old man is Prismo, and the Wishmaster they know is only his dream. Somehow this character got even cooler. He tells them that once they wake him up, Prismo will die. Killing a Wishmaster is a cosmic crime that will send them to the Citadel. After he takes one last look at his room, he tells them to go for it. Of course, the two are hesitant and...
Please don't be a trap.
Wake up.
And Prismo dies. The old man wakes up completely confused, saying he's ready to go back to sleep. But the Lich wastes no time in disposing of him, a desire that was probably festering deep within him ever since he got stuck in his frozen state. This was probably the most shocking moment in Adventure Time for me, or at least up until that point in the show. It's unfortunate that another figure that Jake looked up to, or had an attachment to, had to be killed by the Lich, the first one being Billy. My only gripe is that in the next episode, when Finn and Jake hitch a ride to the Citadel to find Finn's dad, we don't see Jake grappling with the fact that one of his best friends just died. You could argue he was too distracted by the chaos with Martin. But even a single line from Jake would have gone a long way. Imagine if, after Finn loses his arm, Jake sat beside him in silence, referencing Prismo's death. It would have made the episode even more impactful. After all, they may have defeated the Lich, but it would hammer home the fact that they still technically lost. We do, however, see their grief explored in the following episode in Prismo's story, Is That You? We see the pair holding a small memorial for Prismo around a jar of his pickles. Jake eats the last one, and then a flash of light and a sudden gust of wind sweep over them. Jake says,
Wait, to bed! This has to be the last thing we think about! Yep! Dream!
Now, I assume they did this because they just wanted to dream of Prismo, but it isn't exactly clear. When Finn wakes up the next day, he finds Jake reenacting moments from past episodes.
Hey man, you're shaking it all wrong!
What the jump?
Hey man, you're shaking it all wrong.
Each time Finn interrupts him, Jake bursts apart and reappears, acting out another memory. While Finn tries to make sense of it, we see our Jake in a strange cube-like dimension. He then sees Prismo and chases after him. There's even a subtle blink and you'll miss it moment where Prismo peeks in on Jake, a detail that makes sense later, as is often the case with time paradox stories. Jake then witnesses Prismo's death again from Wake Up and says,
I remember feeling like someone had peeled a layer away from my brain, and my reality was no longer anchored to any point of reference. And I had to fight to keep from being crushed under the weight of an unforgiving new paradigm of ultimate reality.
In other words, even though that episode didn't show it, he was wrestling with his grief, stuck in denial. In a way, this scene makes up for my earlier criticism of Jake not acknowledging Prismo's death when they met Finn's dad. Ultimately, it shows just how badly it messed him up. In the real world, Finn is still trying to figure out what to do with all the random Jake memories showing up. He then comes up with a plan that if the memory of Jake performing the memorial service shows up, he'll follow along and see what changed when they went to sleep. And he finds that Jake somehow got transported into the pickle jar, which is how he ends up in the cube dimension. Finn jumps in after him. Jake then comes across this extremely cozy bed. He starts glazing it and realizes that it's an obvious trap, but he doesn't care, salutes the person who made it, and passes out on the bed. And Prismo comes back to life. When we get back to Finn, he's arrived in the cube dimension and here's Jake running after Prismo. He chases after him, but is stopped by a past version of Prismo. Things are about to get even more complicated, so I'm going to try my best to explain this. Prismo explains that he set up this plan B scenario in case he ever died, having Jake bring him back through his dreams. Prismo then gets Finn to follow him. That's when we see another Jake running like he did before, and Prismo peeks in on him, like we saw in the previous scene. Classic paradox mumbo jumbo. Past Prismo tells Finn to wake up Jake, and when he goes to do that, he speaks with present Prismo. He realizes that his past self is doing plan B, and Finn wakes Jake up, killing him again. After forcing him out of the bed, the two go back to past Prismo inside the wall, and we see another version of Jake approaching the bed. As the present versions debrief, we get this amazing scene.
Shoot! Hide!
Hey, did we get turned around somewhere? I feel like we're lost.
No, I was just stalling. Don't think about it. Come on, this way.
Past Prismo then tells present Finn to stop his past self from waking up Jake this time, which would mean that one of Jake's incarnations would have to sleep for eternity to keep Prismo alive. Present Jake is down for this, and honestly speaking, past Jake would be too, given how comfy the bed is, how much he likes sleeping, and how much he loves Prismo.
I'm always smiling when I'm around you. Just noticed that. I always am.
I'm always smiling when I'm around you, too.
That would all be fine, but there's one thing to solve for.
Okay, but Finn, I'm not sure what'll happen if you confront yourself. He might explode.
And we get possibly the most real piece of dialogue in the entire show.
Heroes risk everything for their friends, although I admit you're more Jake's friend than mine. Sometimes you can think someone is totally cool, but you never become besties.
I'm sure we've all been in this exact same situation. It further shows how Prismo can pretty much get along with anyone, a trait that is rarely found in any character or person. Finn walks up behind his past self and stops him, resulting in this version of Finn becoming Finn's sword. I have a whole lore recap on what happens with this sword and how it becomes Fern. Click the I to go watch that video. But with that, present Finn and Jake welcome Prismo back to life, and we see the sleeping Jake morph into the old man we saw back in Wake Up. This episode is considered by many to be a top 5 episode. The plot is interesting, it has some of the best dialogue of any episode in the show, and it makes you love Prismo even more. The only thing that confuses me, which I touched on earlier, is how a past version of Prismo can even exist. It is hinted at earlier that he exists beyond time, given that he remembers Jake after he made his wish to undo everything. So I really don't know what's going on here, and I think it's best to just not think about it. But speaking of that episode, it's worth noting that Prismo helped Jake get his life back with Finn. So in a way, having a past version of Jake sleep for eternity to bring Prismo back feels like present Jake returning the favor. Looking closer though, both of these versions of Finn and Jake are very tragic. The Finn sword becomes Fern, and later in the 1000-year time skip, the great tree housing the Finn sword, which the new adventurers Shermie and Beth pick up. Meanwhile, a version of Jake remains asleep forever so Prismo can live on. Both sacrifice themselves to help others, a theme that is echoed throughout the series. After Prismo's resurrection, he makes a brief cameo in the episode You Forgot Your Floaties. Magic Man explains that he tried to wish for his dead wife Margles, who was taken by Golb, and yet Prismo is unable to fulfill the request.
Balls. Man, that has never happened before.
This is full confirmation that Golb exceeds Prismo's power. In the episode Hoots, we see Prismo chilling with the Cosmic Owl and playing the banjo. This could indicate something more, but I'll touch on that later. The point is, other than Finn and Jake, Cosmic Owl is his only other friend. And we now arrive at arguably the best episode in the show, crossover. Prismo calls in Finn and Jake for an urgent favor. See, remember back when the farm world dimension was created and Jake fixed it all with his wish? As it turns out, it didn't exactly fix everything, and that reality continued to exist. Poor Finn is confused out of his mind because technically it didn't happen to this version of him. Anyways, Prismo says that farm world Finn is trying to open a gateway to the multiverse, and in doing so could result in everything being erased. And then he says,
Now, if that happens, my boss, let me repeat that, my boss will hold me responsible. And by proxy, y'all both will be in the dip too.
Finn even asks Prismo why he doesn't just use his powers to fix everything, but he reveals that there's something in that dimension that is negating his powers, which, as we'll find out, is probably because of the Lich. Again, this isn't directly confirmed, but it's the only thing that makes sense to me, especially after what Prismo does later. He gives them the Maid, an interdimensional weapon that can erase pretty much anything, but in standard fashion,
Nope! This is bull juice!
Oh, flip!
the two hesitate and decide to steal the Enchiridion from Farmworld Finn so that he can't open the portal.
That should work. That's not gonna work, you guys. Don't walk away from the maid. No!
Eventually, the two, with Farmworld Finn's help, use it to get rid of the Lich.
A man needs a maid, a man needs a maid, a man needs a maid!
Housekeeping.
Prismo then brings them back into the time room, where Finn asks him to do something about Farmworld Finn. Prismo, now being able to use his powers, teleports the crown back into the dead body of Simon, which would then be destroyed once the bomb goes off. Everything goes down the way it does, but now Farmworld Finn goes back to normal. Now, just as an aside, to this day, this change confuses me to no end. If Prismo puts the crown back where it was, meaning that two crowns exist at once, and everything goes the way it does, why would he go back to normal in the end? I'm no expert in theoretical physics, let alone Adventure Time theoretical physics, so I don't know, but my best guess is that Prismo's small cut and paste is happening in real time, meaning that it all happens the way it does, but it has some weird magical effect that causes Farmworld Finn to go back to normal. Regardless of the details, what matters is that Prismo chose to help an alternate version of Finn, even though it was from a universe he had no real connection to. He's the kind of deity who helps whenever he can, but not always. In the Elements miniseries, where Ooze mutated into 4 different elements, Betty betrays Finn. She wants to use the Enchiridion to time travel and stop Simon from putting on the crown.
No more Ice King, no more Magic Betty. Maybe I can even stop the Mushroom War.
And we see both the Cosmic Owl and Prismo gobsmacked. Thankfully, Ice King sabotages her and she ends up on Mars. Now, if Prismo was watching the whole time, seeing Ooh get destroyed, why didn't he help out Finn and Jake when they got back from the islands? The obvious answer is plot. It would be boring as hell if some deity came in and fixed everything like it was nothing. Maybe this was a case of fix your own mess. Surely Jake could have contacted him. We could have had a piece of dialogue that explains how Prismo, even with all his powers, can't do much, especially since LSP is the key to fix everything. Not a huge deal, but something I wanted to mention. The last time we see Prismo in the original series is in the final episode briefly. Just like with what happened to Magic Man when he wished for Margot's back, Simon presumably does the same thing for Betty after she fuses with Golb, and yet again, Prismo is unable to fulfill the wish. For a long time, because of these scenes, a lot of people assumed that Golb was Prismo's boss. We do find out that this is not the case in what I'll touch on next, the Fionna and Cake spin-off series.
I've got limits to my power, bro. That doesn't give you an excuse to mess with my stuff.
The only thing that sucks about Prismo here is that he isn't voiced by Kumail Nanjiani. No disrespect to Sean Mahoney, I think he does an alright job, but Nanjiani brought such a warmth to his character that you can definitely feel something is missing in this show. Apparently his agents rejected the offer on his behalf to come back without even telling him, and all I have to say to them is,
You being stupid on purpose?
in the far future, after Jake dies, we see Prismo watching back the adventures of him and Finn. He looks extremely sad and grief-ridden, which spawned this infamous thumbnail, shout out to Lessons Of by the way. Prismo is so deep in his rut that he just stays in his bathtub, barely even acknowledging those who come to make a wish. On top of that, his remote keeps flashing, but he chooses to ignore it. Finally, when he does, he sees that a crossover has occurred, meaning that inhabitants from one universe have come into another. Prismo finds out that it's Fionna and Cake who came out of Simon's head. Now, I know that's confusing, but in this episode, we learn that Prismo got bored creating realities from other people's wishes and decided to make his own, which was Fionna and Cake's world.
Shit, did I just copy Finn and Jake?
The problem is that he isn't supposed to be creating universes, and he decides to hide it in Simon's, or at the time, Ice King's head. This answered the mystery of a previous episode in the original series, where we saw a Fionna and Cake beam enter Ice King's head. Anyways, this guy called the Scarab, a supposed god auditor, shows up to find out why Prismo kept ignoring his universe breach alarm. It is here that we see Prismo clone himself, although he often gets confused about which one of his selves is talking.
Never had any trouble with skirts in my stories. How about shorts, huh?
What? What do you mean, shorts?
You know, mortals. I call them shorts because they're smaller than us. And their lives are really short.
I always love this line because it subtly reinforces his heartbroken mindset. When he shows Fionna and Cake the Prime universe, he says,
"Well, this universe is special because it had my favorite guy. There he is."
Despite him being really close friends with the Cosmic Owl, his friendship with Jake was unlike any he had ever had. His death affected Prismo so badly that he's barely doing his job. As he tries to hide Fionna and Cake with his clone, he accidentally blurts out,
"That's the last time I make an unauthorized universe."
Unauthorized universe?
Scarab could easily let Prismo fix everything, but in truth, he wants Prismo's job as Wishmaster. So he tries to find Simon and show their boss what Prismo did. Prismo urges Fionna and Cake to get back into Simon's head, but then the Scarab finds them. That's when he, like he has done before, chooses to sacrifice himself. He gives the three his remote while he holds off the Scarab, and they all start dimension hopping. Since he made them in the image of Finn and Jake, you could read this as his way of giving back to Jake despite him being dead. Although the Scarab doesn't kill him, this scene has amazing storytelling beneath the surface. Scarab traps him in this cube and dumps him into his hot tub. Later, Prismo tries to break free, but he then witnesses Fionna and Cake's universe being authorized and officially added to the Adventure Time multiverse, thanks to Gold Betty. Go watch my video recapping and analyzing Betty's story, by the way. Even though their universe is now canon, Scarab goes apeshit, and Prismo calls in reinforcements from all the universes Fionna and Cake visited during the series. So I guess Prismo can only help universes when Dee Dee starts stirring shit. Does this not count as a crossover? Honestly, I have no idea. I would consider this a plot hole though, personally. Unless I'm missing something, let me know down below. After Scarab is defeated, we see him become a shadow figure just like Prismo, but he's forced to clean up the time room. Prismo states that Scarab might even be able to grant a wish in a century or so, and even lets him use his character creation program. A wholesome ending for a wholesome character. Now, there's a theory I want to touch on that completely reframes Prismo's entire story. See, after the events of Is That You, where we see Jake become the old man, I was wondering whether or not the original old man that was killed by the Lich is also Jake. Let's look at the facts. Prismo instantly got along with Jake. He has the same eating habits as him, he loves pickles and sandwiches, we see that he likes to play Card Wars with the Cosmic Owl, the game being a huge obsession of Jake's. Prismo plays the banjo while Jake plays the viola, and most importantly, he tries to help Jake make his wish to save Finn, and his grief downright drowns him after Jake dies. I would not be surprised at all if the old man we saw is a version of Jake. It even kinda reframes the title of the episode, Is That You? Real quick, let's go back to the maid. At the bottom of the back of the weapon, it states, "Don't mess around and point the maid at your buddy, you goof. You already screwed up once." Let's imagine a scenario where Jake, in another universe, goes on the same crazy adventures with Finn, but something goes wrong. Like he starts fucking around with the maid weapon and accidentally obliterates Finn. Jake, losing his best friend, succumbs to his grief, lets his world go to shit, and has no motivation to continue helping others despite wanting to. Eventually, he is contacted by the so-called boss of the deities, who offers him the role of becoming Wishmaster. Jake, after losing everyone he loves, decides to take up the role, which results in him falling asleep, morphing into the old man, and thus Prismo was born. The maid is most likely a reference to the Neil Young song of the same name. Let's look at the first few lines of the song. "My life is changing in so many ways, I don't know who to trust anymore. There's a shadow running through my days, like a beggar going from door to door." This could easily add more depth to the theory. Jake's life completely changes after Finn dies. The shadow not only refers to Prismo's form being a shadow-like figure, but also his mistake of killing Finn with the maid. It keeps following him around, even in his subconscious. The only plot error I can see is why wouldn't he recognize Finn or Jake after they arrive in the time room the first time? Well, Prismo's just a dream. There wouldn't be an exact reason why he would remember everything about his past life, given that he's been around for millennia. But given that dreams are just unconscious repressed thoughts, as Sigmund Freud states, some of his memories bleed out. That being in the form of Card Wars, pickles, sandwiches, his musical talent, and even repressed memories of killing his brother. Maybe he wrote that at the back of the maid subconsciously. It's ultimately why I believe he made such an effort to have Jake make the right wish to save Finn. What do you guys think? Is Prismo just a dream of Jake from an alternate world who lost everything? Let me know. In before I get comments saying, "Wow, this theory is so dumb. Can't friends just have extremely common interests?" And to that, I'll say,
Put it in my Navicomputer, then.
Shut up! Just shut up, you idiot!
sure, you could argue that the theory makes Prismo's character less compelling. I'd argue not really. Prismo is still Prismo regardless of his backstory. Maybe season 2 of Fionna and Cake rolls around that explores his true origin, but I highly doubt it. His character is perfect the way it is. Prismo's story is ultimately one about sacrifice. Despite being an almighty wishmaster who is supposed to be impartial, he goes out of his way more often than not to help mortals when they can't help themselves. Sure, he doesn't do it all the time, but when things become multiversal, he'll always be there. He somehow formed such a strong strong bond with a mortal that after he died, his grief overwhelmed him and disrupted his daily life. Prismo wasn't just the maker of maybes, he was also the helper who healed. Even if the Jake theory isn't true, the fact that he is just a dream of an old man can tell us a lot about his true nature. Dreams are nothing but unconscious thoughts that our brain likes to perceive in the form of stories. In Prismo's case, he was probably a nobody as an old man, a lone wanderer seeking a purpose. Perhaps he wanted to be someone helpful, someone who could help those unfortunate. In dreaming, he embodies that wish. He lingers as a shadow, as a presence that never fades, as a glimmer under the mirage of desire. Please leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. I make video essays almost every week. As always, every subscriber and every like just motivates me to continue making the best content I can. If you like the way I tell stories, check out my fantasy fiction novel, The Shattered Absolution, that is heavily inspired by the lore of Adventure Time. As always, thank you for the continued support. Consider joining my Patreon for early access. Follow all my socials down below. Join my Discord server, and I want to thank you once again for watching.